Oops, hang on. Yes, we should be live. So let's play. Greetings and salutations. This is Hugh Jarsz coming to you from a hot and steamy Brisbane. 6:30 in the morning. I've got the aircon on. That's summer for you in Australia. And I'm joined by Professor Phil Bell. How are you, Phil?
Very well, thank you. Thanks for having me on. And that was an interesting video just before.
Yes, we'll have a chat more about that. But Phil, just for those people who haven't encountered you before, can you give me a little bit of an intro to yourself?
Oh, well, just briefly, I'm a professor at a university. I also work on a contract basis at ISRO, and one of my jobs is to put satellites into orbit.
ISRO is the Indian Space Agency.
Yeah. And so that's one of my jobs, and I provide advice to the government of India and also various other institutions with regards to even climate change. So that's where I am heading after this stint. So I'll be pretty much full time in that area. So I've got a varied life. Teach physics.
Yep, you do.
Yeah.
So you're a professor of physics.
Yes. Yes.
Do you have a particular specialty apart from space travel?
Well, actually, my specialty is particle physics. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And are you willing to say which university you're at, or?
No, I think I'll probably just leave that alone.
Fair enough. Yeah. That's up to you. You don't never have to say anything you don't want to say.
I suppose if people want to dig enough, they'll find it. But
yeah, that's up to them.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So we have a real rocket scientist here, basically. So, hey, if you got questions for Phil, put them in the chat, and he'll do his best to answer them.
Yeah, why not?
So, what we got? Who we got in here? We got Doctor Who was our first person in the chat. Welcome to you. Doctor Who did my avatar and my intro, not the music. I wrote that, but the graphics for it. So, if you need something like that done, go contact Doctor Who and see if he can do it for you. He also did it for Irish Demon as well. Real Cygnus, hello to you. Skydiver Tanner, one of our contributors on the video, hello to you. Clive Wells, Dr. Clive Wells, always good to see you. And my favourite Dutch person, Dora Unku, is there. Hello, Dora. I hope I pronounced your last name correctly. S. Thurston too. G'day. Who else got? Barry on. Hello, Barry. And that's... Oh, yes, Barry says that he annoys Gary, Professor Bell annoys Gary Ibenga at no end, which is great. I don't think I've missed anyone else so far who haven't commented. If you're watching and you haven't commented yet, please go to the chat and say hi. It'd be good to say hi to you. Right, so now this is my first time on the expanded version of StreamYard. I've been using the cheap version for now, up till now, but there was an interesting announcement a couple of days ago, which a lot of us were looking forward to. I'm just going to play that now.
After Bull's passing, I was kind of not really in the mood to do an award ceremony for Dumb Fuck of the Year, so if it's all right with you guys, I will go ahead and just say what the winner is right now. I'm not going to have a award ceremony right now because, again,
that's understandable.
Bull's passing just took the wind out of my sails, to be completely honest with you. So I'll just say who the winner is, and then that will be that. Well, I wanted Kyle Curtis to win, but he didn't. Unfortunately, he came in second. Third place was, of course, Unirock, because fuck that guy. So the winner, unfortunately, is Nathan Thompson.
Way! 2 years in a row. 2 years in a row.
Yep, Nathan Thompson has won Dumb Fuck of the Year. So congratulations, Nathan Thompson. You piece of shit. You now have a trophy to your name.
Oh, lovely. So for 2 years running, I have predicted the correct winner of Dumbfuck of the Year. Congratulations, Nathan Thompson, on being officially the stupidest fucking person in the worst fucking year we've ever experienced as humanity. Congratulations to Kyle Curtis for being a dishonest piece of shit and coming second, and congratulations to Unirock for just being generally one of the worst people on the planet and coming third.
Okay.
Yes, Nathan Thompson won Dumbfuck of the Year. Woohoo! No one has, apart from Anthony Riley, no one has deserved it more than Nathan Thompson, I think.
Yeah.
What do you think, Bill?
Well, actually, yeah, I suppose from if you're looking at the dumb area, because you should have an award for Scammer of the Year or Grifter.
Yeah,
then you'd be able to include, the Oakleys and the Kiwis and the Dubays and people like that.
And maybe Lunatic of the Year, and that way Daniel Pratt would win every year.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. I'm pretty damn sure those people that I mentioned don't actually believe the Earth is flat.
Absolutely, I agree. What's interesting though is that I reckon Nathan won Dumbfuck of the entire year back in February, and everyone else had 8 months to best him, and they never did. And in fact, he built on it. He got even better. He got even dumber as the year went on with the whole ducks thing. And I remember he appeared on Modern Day Debates as a tag team with G-Man. And G-Man was the inaugural Dumbfuck of the Year. And I said at the time, I reckon that's the inaugural Dumbfuck of the Year with the current, the 2020 Dumbfuck of the Year.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Well, I think they can't actually help coming across as dumb. And the reason is because as there are more people like us debunking what they do, their arguments that they put forward have to become more and more stupid. So it follows that they appear to us to be dumber and dumber.
I think you're right. Yeah, it's and Flat Earth is just basically dead. There's no one that with any credibility whatsoever. When I first started on this, I sort of hoped I'd come across someone who had a decent argument, but none of them do.
No, that's right. I think if you come across Oakley's show, that's pretty much turned into a church service.
Yes,
So where they run through the service, answer these housekeeping questions, and it sounds exactly like a church service would. So it's become like a religion. And really, its purpose is only one thing, and that's to derive some income for the owner. It has no other real purpose. It's not going to go anywhere. It's not like flat earthers actually believe that anything will happen. What on earth do they think we're going to do? We're going to shut down probably the fastest growing industry on the planet. Multi-billion-dollar space industry is going to stop. Oh, there's Flerfs. We better stop doing what we're doing now because there's a few dumb Flerfs who think the Earth is flat.
Yes. Yeah, well, if anyone's in on the conspiracy, it's you because you're sending stuff into space, so it's fake.
Yeah.
Hey,
totally.
So you're getting paid for sending fake stuff into fake space. How do I get in on that deal?
Oh, not only that. I'll tell you, it gets worse than that because some of these things. When you talk about a satellite that people have been working on for 10 years. And then you're looking at the hardware, you're looking at the fuel and all of that, and then the personnel to drive all of this. $100 million wouldn't get you very far. And this is happening at least a few times a week somewhere on Earth. Rockets are going up almost several times a week anywhere. So their claim is that we are sending up a rocket and dumping it in the sea. I mean, they must really think they're special. That $100 million worth of equipment of stuff, plus years and years and years of development work. We're just going to dump it in the sea. I mean, seriously, they really think they're special.
And it's funny how the main reason they think it gets dumped in the sea is because the rocket looks like it's going horizontal as it moves away from you. Well, that's perspective. The same thing they claim as to what makes the sun set. So it's just it works in one case, but not in the other, and they just pick and choose to suit themselves, and that's why they don't deserve respect. Which is why we did the video that just played before this live stream.
Well, there's the other thing. The rocket is going into orbit. It can't actually go up and then make a right turn.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it can, because gravity doesn't exist, does it?
I think maybe the Jetsons can do that. They go straight up and then they can just stop and make a right turn.
Well, they are cartoons,
That's right. Yeah. So.
Were you watching the video before we started this live stream?
I just began to. I've had to get a few things ready because I've got to go to work early today. But how
long have I got you for, by the way?
Probably at least an hour or so. So
okay, cool.
That's enough. Yeah.
Yeah, that's plenty. Yeah, thanks very much for taking the time to be part of it.
Oh, you're very welcome. Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking, did you see the bit where you were on in the video?
Yeah.
I added a few little bits. Did you like that?
I did actually, and I just thought I'd just qualify some of that. So I think that because this is one of the main churchy things that happens with both Quantum Razor and in Oakley's channel, and in fact it's spread around among the few people that are there. You notice I don't think there's actually a lot of them. I just think they just jump from channel to channel and listen to each other. So their main claim is that that space doesn't exist, and they're saying because they've debunked they've debunked space, therefore everything to do with it, the planets, the satellites, anything, photos and all of that is just nonsense because they've managed to debunk it. And their only claim to debunking it is they're saying that there's gas pressure without a container. And so this is why I put that little bit together. And then I thought about it. I thought, well, okay, so you have a barometer in your hand, have a read of it, and now you can walk around, see if you can bump into the container that's causing it, because their direct view was that that the gas particles are bumping against the container and coming back. And I don't think they understand it also bumps into the instrument that they're reading. I don't think they get that bit. But anyway,
a lot they don't get.
they don't understand that you're reading it because because the particles are bumping into it. So basically they should read the barometer. Okay, yeah, I can read the pressure. Okay, now where's that damn container? Let's go look for it. Okay, maybe we can take a jet up, go look for it. I know. Let's get a high altitude balloon, see if we can go find the container. The bloody container's nowhere to be seen.
Well, that's the thing. They're adamant that a dome exists, and yet there's no proof of it whatsoever. Where's the evidence that there's a dome? And yet they're so adamant that there's plenty of evidence that space exists, because, as you say, you yourself send rockets up there, and Mr. Sensible sent up a balloon and that kind of thing. So, at least if there is a dome, it's further out than that. It's further out than Voyager 2, I think, is the furthest one out at the moment. So where's the evidence that there is a dome? So there isn't any, and yet they're certain they're right and everyone else is wrong. If you've got someone that has evidence and someone that has no evidence, which one do you go for, at the very least, as your working assumption? Not the one with no evidence. Yeah,
exactly. Now, the other thing is that they go on with the second law of thermodynamics, and the reason they use this
Well, their misunderstanding of it, put it that way.
Yeah, totally misunderstanding about it, which it's a law about energy, and thermo should give it away, shouldn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, you think. Anyway, so they misunderstand this about this law, and the reason that they apply that, I think, is because then they can attach the word entropy to it, and so they're saying that it's the entropy that causes the gas to move from one place to another. And I was thinking, okay, well, what are the units for entropy? It's energy, isn't it? Yeah, isn't it got to do with joules per Kelvin? So it's energy and temperature. What has the particles go boom boom got to do with that?
Oh, well, you'd have to watch a little bit of Oakley for that, which is not something that's recommended. Their argument is that gas just sorts itself by density, of course.
Yeah.
Which it doesn't, because otherwise we'd all be breathing carbon dioxide.
Yes, and probably worse.
Yes. And they're saying that they just move around randomly, but our argument, the people who believe in reality, say that gravity's pulling down on those, so therefore the gas goes down and goes boom, boom on the ground.
Yes.
Or whatever container that it's in. And so that's where that comes from.
Well, I mean, there's the thing about it is that what none of them seem to be able to explain is why there is a pressure gradient. Why is it that there's less and less of it as you go further up? And they can't argue with that. I mean, even as I mentioned in that video, 0.036 pounds per square inch by the time you get to 127,000 feet.
So 38,000 meters,
yeah, 38,000 meters. So that's pretty much next to nothing. And so why is it? Why does it stop on its way? I mean, Oakley's his famous thing for saying is that gas moves in all directions, and yes, it does. But there's a caveat on that. On where it moves and how fast it moves, and that is what other forces are opposing it. And of course, the main one is gravity, isn't it?
Well, that's the one thing Flerfs tend to misunderstand the most, I think. They don't understand that the summation of forces on anything, there's usually more than one force acting on it.
Yes,
and so its vector will be determined by the summation of all the forces on it. And it works for gas as well.
Of course, it's the net forces that we'll be concerned about. And what is it? So you add them all up, correct? And let's see where it finishes up. And that's where it's going to be. And of course, it can only go so far. I mean, a really good question. They never seem to ask themselves any questions at all, by the way. A really good question would be, why does the helium balloon only rise to 127,000 feet? Why doesn't it go any further? And why
does it expand?
Yeah. Why? Well, expanding proves that the
pressure was less.
Yeah. But the fact that it goes up to 127,000 feet, and apparently the only reason that it goes up is because it defies the density of everything else. Well, it should just keep going. Well, it doesn't, because the density of the air that's next to the balloon for the same amount of volume is the same amount of pressure, is the same amount of density, isn't it? So if the density, if the same volume is of outside the balloon has the same density as inside the balloon, then it doesn't rise any further. Well, why doesn't it do that? Well, because the stuff that's there can't displace it anymore. So there's nothing
not there.
Nothing to force it up anymore. I would have thought that's like, if you didn't know any physics of this at all, just intuitively you could figure that out.
Well, if you want to figure things out, yes. If you want to protect your worldview, that's a different matter, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's. I think you hit the nail on the head, and that's protecting the worldview. I actually did a little bit of research. Actually, it's not such a little bit, because I've now been following this for a couple of years now, and I just wanted to find out who are these people that are doing it. And surprisingly, that they're not young people. They sort of in their 40s and more. So I'm generalizing, but the data is showing this. That the average is around about just over 40 years old, and usually have left school early at some stage.
And also, most of them seem to have a bit of a chip on their shoulder over something.
Yeah, exactly, and I think it's because of that they have a chip. So there's this anti-authority thing. That's one, and there's this anti-science thing. So in other words, who do they think they are? Those people telling us, stuff. And
people who know what they're talking about. How dare they tell us?
yeah, exactly. Like acting like big shots and stuff like that. Telling us stuff. And
yet, which is weird, because our entire society is based on specialization. People find a specialization so that they can learn as much as possible about that. And then when the need for it arises, they can come in, and we're more likely to succeed as a result, because those people are experts in those fields. And yet these people seem to reject experts of any kind. They want the idiots instead. They want idiots running the place, sure.
Well, you'd think so. I mean, surely they don't go to, they just don't call anybody to fix their car, or
don't call a plumber to fix the car.
Yeah. So they do know that there's people who know stuff that you don't know, and there's stuff that that other people don't know. It's just that's just life. So why should you dismiss what someone else knows? I mean, it doesn't kind of make any sense. Why pick on the scientists? To say that they're lying. Why isn't the plumber lying? Or whoever it is,
exactly. It's a conspiracy to clog up the drain so the plumber gets more money. That's what it all is.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, these guys are pretty smart. I had a unfortunate incident at my house, and the sewage started to back up, and the plumber said, It's probably that tree over there is probably got a branch in the decided to invade the old earthenware pipe, and
no, it's a conspiracy. That's the first reaction to that. Just replace scientists with plumber, and
Yeah, well, I could have had a bad reaction to that, because that was quite an expensive thing for me to fix up. So, but I said, okay, fair enough. And your evidence. So he pulled out a camera, shoved it down the hole, and said, "Have a look."
Yeah, and that's a reasonable approach, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So
you might hear something you don't like, but that doesn't mean it's not real. So go and get some evidence, one way or the other, and then you come to the point, okay, yes, I do have to spend all this money, but you might not like it, but it's still reality.
Yeah, absolutely. And so by the same token, let's just say we don't know anything about the shape of the Earth. You and I were thinking, well, let's think of some ways that we could figure it out. What it is, and we've got all our technology and all that. So let's see if we can figure out what. Well, I would have thought this most simplest thing is to see how high you can go up and have a look. Maybe take a photograph or two.
That's another thing. That's another thing that Flerfs don't, and other conspiracy nutters don't deserve respect about. They're no good at designing experiments. I noticed Sleeping Warrior released a video that just before mine, where, and I only watched a few seconds of it because it's Sleeping Warrior, and he basically said it's been 18 months since my experiment and no baller has disproved it. He's just picking reality to suit himself, isn't he? Because everyone's done it to him. AB Science did the best one, I think, because he's an actual scientist.
Yeah.
I don't know if you did one. I know Bob the Science Guy did one, and I did one with the NASA Black Site, and there was a whole lot of things. They were just everywhere, and they're just laughing at him. It was part of why he won DFOTY that year. and yet he's saying, "Oh no one's beaten me with it." Well, yeah, they have. You're just not accepting it.
Yeah, he's not talking to us. That's why he's talking to
Echo chamber.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they could design some experiment, go up, get a rocket to go up, put a camera on it. That would be like a simple thing to do, and then observe what the Earth does look like from up there, and then that would kind of answer that question once and for all. I mean, that's if you ignored all the other reasons why it's obviously a sphere, but that would be a good one. You could do that.
Well,
now,
there was nothing stopping him doing what Mr. Sensible did, because that just requires a bit of money. That's all. And it wasn't that much.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, you could go even further than that if you put some fuel on it. So why not? And why wouldn't anyone have done that in the last 2,000 years?
Well, the thing is, lots of people have.
Of course they have.
But they just ignore that.
No, we know that, but why aren't they asking themselves that question?
Because it means that they'd have to accept that they're wrong, and that's what you were getting at with saying they left school early and a chip on their shoulder and that sort of thing. They feel the world has treated them badly. I mean, Sleeping Warrior is a good example. He claims he trained as a lawyer, although I doubt that, but that's for a future video. And then he's not working as a lawyer. In fact, he was working as a taxi driver, basically, and I don't know what he's working as now. But he's obviously not achieved the thing he set out to achieve. So he feels that the world's been against him. He's had a rough trot in life. But he gets some sort of kick out of being a big name, you might say, not that he's that big, in Flat Earth. And what it's earned him is winning Dumb Fuck of the Year.
Well, I reckon you're right, and that was part of that research, and that is that those people who are in the front line of it, for them, it's an identity thing. So, they
it becomes part of who they are, which says a lot about who they are.
Yeah, well, I think it's an important part of their identity. That it's how they could. I mean, they're never going to feel important just being in the mainstream, because even I'm not that important in the mainstream. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of people just like me and teach and all that just like me. So I'm not special. But they want to be special, and the only way to be special is to be so ridiculously different, and that is to, come out with something really silly.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're special in the sense that you've got achievements. You've got your PhD, you become a professor, you're sending rockets from India to the moon and things like that. You've actually got achievements under your belt, whereas the common thing with Flerfs is none of them have really achieved anything other than winning Dumb Fuck of the Year. So that's why they're desperate to be special, and that's why they'll accept methods that other people wouldn't choose to mark as achievements. And because they've got sycophants who are also just as pathetic as they are, they feel they have achieved something. and that's why they get locked into it, I think.
Yeah, but on the other hand, I'm see most of the people none of my colleagues would ever consider coming here and arguing with people who think the Earth is flat. So I'm quite eccentric, to be honest.
Oh, well, I was going to ask you about that. I mean, you're a distinguished academic, and not just an academic, the Indian Space Agency and all that. And yet, why are you wasting your time with these idiots?
Well, we all have our quirks, Some people like S&M, and I just like to argue with Flerfs.
Well, it is masochistic, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it is kind of. But, I guess I've never been a snob, so I'll engage with anybody. I'm not. I think everybody is important in their way. Even the Flerfs.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, listen to the Flerfs. I met a Flerf who lays down road. The asphalt for road, that's an important thing to do, and there's quite a bit of knowledge involved in that. And
Absolutely, yeah.
And just because he thinks the Earth is flat doesn't mean that he's not important to us, to society in general, and he is. So we all have something to contribute.
Yeah, all work has honour.
Yeah. So even the Flerf who does absolutely nothing produces a kid who ends up being an engineer or a scientist or a doctor or whatever, or another plumber.
As long as they rebel against their parents, yes.
Yeah, actually, that's also a curiosity, and that is how many of the Flerf people who manage to convince their families that the Earth is flat, or how many of them are ostracized? How many of them lose friends?
I suspect it depends on who you ask, because I look at Nathan Thompson. He's apparently from a rich family by his own admission, and he's living off his dad.
Yeah.
So his dad's obviously an achiever. He also says he has brothers. I suspect his brothers have achieved a fair bit as well, but he hasn't. And he claims that all his brothers have become over to the flat Earth, but I suspect not.
Yeah, no. It would take a fair bit of denying a lot of things around you that are pretty obvious, to be able to do that. This business of the sun, just going away from you. I mean, how silly is that? That whole idea, when it's patently obvious that it sets, that it goes below the horizon.
Well, I'll pay $5,000 to anyone above 40 degrees of latitude, closer to the equator. I mean, so less than 40 degrees latitude, who can give me a picture of the sun at midnight with through a telescope.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, I think you're a cheapskate.
Well, yeah, I could make it 5 million, couldn't I? But
that's right. Yeah.
Or 5 billion even, because no one's going to do it, and that would prove to me that the Earth is flat. But and that's what I'm talking about. Experiments. That's the sort of thing the flat earthers should be coming up with to prove that they're right. But no one ever has, because it's not right. Yeah.
Well, actually, there's a couple of really. I mean, I wouldn't expect the Flerf to do this, but there's this the Burj Khalifa in Dubai is a pretty tall building, and I stay there from time to time, and the few times that I've been there, they have a tour that actually takes you from the bottom. So the sun sets. You can watch the sunset and then get in the lift and go up and see the sun again. Yeah. And the amazing thing is this building is so tall, and because this is fairly flat land, they'll probably hook onto that. Pretty flat land. So what happens is that that down near the fountain at the bottom of the building, it's really dark, like nighttime. But if you have a look at the top, you see the sun shining on the top of the building.
Yeah.
How is that? How on earth does that happen if the sun is going away from you? How is it that the sun shines on the top of the building and it's dark at the bottom? And another instance of that would be, I've seen some videos from Wolfie, he's in an aeroplane, and it's patently obvious it's dark on the ground, but look across at the horizon and there you go, it's perfectly bright. So how does that happen?
Well, I mean, anyone that's been in a plane anywhere near sunset or sunrise has seen the Earth's shadow. And that can't happen if the sun is above us circulating around.
Yeah.
And another thing about that, it's a video I'm about to do. I actually put out a call around the solstice for people. I only got one response, and it was cloudy for him, unfortunately. For people further than 40 degrees south, as far south as you can get, because it was the solstice in December, not the one in June. to confirm the length of the day. So take a video at sunrise and sunset.
Yeah.
But you can look it up on timeanddate.com. That's if that wasn't true, then there's a lot of people in a lot of places that get very angry. And that shows that the further south you go, the longer the day is near the solstice anyway. So if the sun, at the December solstice, according to Flat Earth, the sun is supposed to be orbiting over the Tropic of Capricorn, and it doesn't go any further south. So how come, if the sun is there and not closer to Antarctica, how is the daylight longer the further you go south? That's just not possible.
Exactly. Well, have a look at the board. Let's just preface this by saying that flat earthers say they don't have a model, which is total nonsense, of course, because even flat earthers, it's easy to establish that to force them into agreeing that they do have a model, because they will. Okay. Is there a place that we call the North Pole? That's one. Okay. Number two, is England, the UK, south of this North Pole? Yes. How far is it? Is Spain south of England? How far is it? Is Morocco, and then all the way down to Cape Town, and then Antarctica. All these have some distance in between them that we know about. So it's pretty easy to work out how far it is from the North Pole to any of these places. And let's say we have so therefore it follows that when they say that the Earth is flat and a disk, well, in their model it would have to be. Okay, so if you look at it like that and you say, well, here's the North Pole, and somewhere around here is Australia. I don't want to. I'll draw the flat Earth Australia, which looks really stupid, something like that, and it's long.
You're a scientist, not an artist.
That's right. Yeah, that's true. Okay, so this here. Okay, let's say you're going to Adelaide. This is 8,000 miles. I'll talk in miles because they talk in miles. Okay, so 8,000 miles. All right. And then, if that's 8,000 miles, well, this has a circumference, doesn't it? Yeah, around there. Yeah, I'm not an artist, so there you go. So that has a circumference. Well, what's the formula for that? 2 pi r. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, for this radius, so we're talking around approximately 50,000. But approximately 50,000 miles it would be to get right around there.
Yeah, I think the at Antarctica it's like 150,000 kilometers anyway.
Yeah. So if this is exactly. So if this is 50,000 miles, well, gee whiz, how on earth does the sun stay anywhere over here? Like the people in Adelaide or Sydney or Melbourne would see the sun in the height of summer would see it for about 14 or 15 hours. How on earth does that happen if the rest of it? So it goes for 15 hours over here and then goes like the bat out of hell for the rest of it, for the rest of the 9, from here to back to here.
Yeah,
I mean, how ridiculous is that? And why isn't the average Flerf, who's got any kind of common sense at all, not wondering this question themselves?
Well, and because they don't want to.
Right, yeah, and
simple answer.
Yeah, exactly. And yet, here we have let's say this is a globe. Well, and it's spherical. Well, it explains it quite well over here. That you would be, because over here it gets shorter and shorter as you get down to this end of it, doesn't it? So you got less. The sun's got less time to get right. Has got more time to get right around this. To get around the shorter bit, can hang around a bit longer.
And other questions going back to the flat Earth model: why does the sun is going to have to be moving faster on the Tropic of Capricorn at the December solstice because it's further out than it would on the June solstice when it's on the Tropic of Cancer? Because it's closer in, and we don't observe that change in angular velocity, I guess is the term.
No, and it's also intuitively upside down, the idea of it. Oh, and by the way, while this sun is whizzing around, staying up here, back here somewhere, back here, roughly the same latitude is northern Russia. Where it's only going at 400 miles per hour at the same time.
Yeah, at the same time, yes.
Yeah, which is rather interesting. At the very same time, it's the same sun, or maybe there's more than one sun. Maybe the Russians have their own sun.
Well, some people say that actually. Well, I also did a video at the equinox, and I got people from all over the world to send me in their bearings on the rising sun.
Yeah.
At the equinox, because according to globe theory, everywhere in the world, the sun at the equinox, the sun rises due east. Of course, it varies throughout the year because of the tilt of the Earth. But if you take that bearing and it's due east, then you plot due east at a particular point. Then you go to the flat Earth map, and you figure out where the sun should be at the same time, and it's not east. I had like 5 different points. None of them were due east on the flat Earth map, even though they were in reality because we got filming on it.
Yeah. So
it just shows that the model doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly. But the disturbing thing is that it doesn't take that much common sense to figure that out. And so what worries me is why wouldn't you? Well, it doesn't worry. I guess I understand. The thing about it is that you can't admit to or even want to find out the truth. Otherwise, you now have to lose this sense of importance that you've developed for yourself. I think that's
absolutely, yeah. And they totally ignore the questions that model, the obvious questions that model arises, like what's keeping the sun up there? Yeah. Why does it move at all between the Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn?
Yeah,
why is the moon up there, and what's holding it up there? If they're just lights, okay, well that means that are they on the dome, and then again, why haven't we found the dome, even though we've gone out, hundreds of astronomical units with Voyager 2? So the dome's not that; it is further out than that. But you're saying the sun is only 3,000 kilometers up, or 5,000 kilometers up, 3,000 miles. How does that work?
Yeah, I've heard that, and I'm just thinking, well, if that was the case, then why does it get colder as you approach it?
Yes, as you go up in altitude, yes.
Yeah, you think so. I've actually heard something even weirder, that the heat doesn't come from the sun.
Yeah, I've heard that too. And I heard that the sun is not a light-emitting object.
It doesn't cause daylight.
Yes. It's just bizarre. Just want to go back to that the 5,000 kilometers altitude for the sun thing again.
Yeah.
At the equinox, Wolfie was in Western Australia at the time, which is about 4,000 kilometers from me here in Brisbane. Yeah. I filmed sunset, and I basically sent my film to Wolfie so he could see it, and it was really cloudy, so I didn't really get it very well. Yeah. But it was fully daylight there.
Yeah.
And I figured out, well, if the sun's 5,000 kilometers, if the sun is moving away from us, and that's what causes darkness, that meant it was at least 5,000 kilometers away. Yeah. Yet 4,000 kilometers away, it was still bright sun daylight.
Yeah.
How does that work? It doesn't match up.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't match up. Yeah. Now, the other thing that goes on in this Church of Oakleys is this thing called this black swan thing. I've noticed this photograph. So they've got this photograph that's got a couple of oil rigs on it, and
being Aussies, we're offended by the fact that it's called a black swan. But yeah,
yeah, that's right. Especially if you're from
we own the black swans.
Yeah. Especially people from WA. So anyway, they just having a look at that photograph, it's highly distorted, and you would think, well, I probably wouldn't use this as evidence for that reason, because it's distorted. Yeah. So anybody doing any science would discount that. Something like that. It's
also one photo out of about a set of 100, I think it was, where it was the only one that looked like that. All the others looked completely different. The horizon was in front of the second one.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but one of the things that even people who I hear getting, because I they get on these Discord things and then they get trapped, by people like Quantum Razor, who throw in all sorts of semantics and stuff like that, and they get trapped. And so what they're saying is that the horizon is apparent, therefore there's no geometric horizon, and because there's if there isn't a geometric horizon, then there's no geometry, and if there's no geometry, then the Earth's not a sphere, which is totally ridiculous logic, if you want to call it that. But anyway, you're always looking at the actual horizon. It's just that what you're looking at is not in the place that you'd normally expect it. You're just seeing it a bit further, but you're still seeing. You could get your friend to go out in a boat out there where that horizon is and sample the water. Now you stay here and go out there and send your friend out there in a boat to sample the water. You could do that, as long as you've got the optics to do that. So it's obviously a physical place that you can get to. And if it's a physical place that you can get to, well, that represents the geometry, the tangent to the Earth, and therefore that argument is just nonsense. You are looking at a real thing. I mean, it has to be, because the light's coming off of it and into your eye. Where the hell do you think the light's coming from if it's not coming from the real thing? It's just that you're seeing it further away. That's all. You're just seeing more of it and further away. It would be like if you were in a boat out at sea and there was no land around you. Well, the horizon would be quite flat. In fact, it would be flat. Looking all around you, because it's the same distance away from you everywhere you're looking. So the horizon's flat and perfectly level and flat around you. That's right.
Apart from waves, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, and then if you wanted to see more of it, if you want to see the horizon further away, then get up on the mast. And then you'll see more of it. And then if you got higher, you'd see more of it again and more of it again. I'm stunned that that's not something that ordinary people can't figure out.
I think Cool Hard Logic actually did a video on that, which was the best thing I've seen in terms of explaining it. He was saying you're at sea level, right? You look out and you can only see about 5 kilometers.
Yeah.
And then you climb a cliff 100 meters up, and suddenly the light that couldn't be asked to get to you when you were standing on the beach can get to you now.
Yeah.
And if it was a flat Earth, well, why does light from further away suddenly come to you when it couldn't do it when you're at sea level? What was in the way, you might say?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I have to tell you, Hugh, that I sometimes it feels a bit silly even having these arguments,
Well, it's kind of like, it's talking baby talk, isn't it, for someone like yourself who's gone to the edge of physics,
It is exactly like having baby talk, having a little discussion at primary school or something, with some kids.
Because I'd imagine in your academic world, you deal with a lot of very smart people. Even the students are going to be smart because that's why they're there.
If they weren't. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and you don't get to deal with the vast majority of people who aren't like that at all. And that's not to put them down or anything, because as we said earlier, all work has honor, and there's lots of jobs in our society that make it work that don't require someone who's a professor of physics. In fact, most jobs are like that. So, but as a society, we want the best people in particular roles for that role. There are some roles that anyone can do, and there are some roles that someone who's got a lot of training and experience needs to do. You don't want to put an idiot in charge of a multi-million-dollar project, for example, because you're going to lose all that money, or a rocket launch or something like that, because the rocket's going to crash. You want to make someone who's appropriately qualified, who has the knowledge and experience to actually pull it off. Otherwise, you're just wasting time and money.
Yeah, well, I mean, I mean, I don't actually get the rocket up, but if you get a satellite, then you're changing its orbit, from a transit orbit, which is an elliptical orbit, to a perfectly circular orbit. You could get a lot of things wrong, and
it'll crash, and you lose billions of dollars. Yeah.
Well, it would be painfully expensive if you did get it wrong. So yes, yeah, exactly.
Or the satellite would run out of propellant, and it would crash. Yeah.
Well, eventually, it would.
Eventually, yes.
Orbit for a long time, but yeah, you wouldn't be able to.
Or to be in a useless orbit where it's
a useless orbit. I think that's probably the best explanation. A useless orbit where it doesn't do any good. For instance, mapping satellites have to going from pole to pole, around about 5 degrees off pole to pole. They rely on the Earth turning beneath them. And every 12 hours manage to get a photograph of the entire Earth, bit by bit. In fact, the ISRO one, the latest one, which is the Cartosat 3, can take a photograph, a 250 mil by 250 millimeter photograph. That's the resolution, 250 by 250, which is the best in the world. Yeah. So essentially, there's no place you can hide.
Gee, 250 mil is the resolution. Wow.
Yeah.
So 1 pixel equals 250 mils, which is 25 centimeters.
Yeah, exactly, 25 centimeters. Yeah. So that is amazing. That's from the 509 kilometers.
Not quite good enough to read a number plate on a car, but you could certainly tell what sort of car it was.
Well, there's more I could tell you, but I won't. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure there's spy satellites that have even better resolution. So. But they're spy satellites, so we don't talk about those.
No, exactly. Yeah. So,
in fact, I once heard that a former director of NASA, I think it was, or might have been the CIA or something like that, was once sent a present, which was a photograph taken from a spy satellite of him, and you could read the NASA on his cap.
Wow.
it was taking a picture of him from space from a spy satellite. But that could be just urban myth. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, we'll just leave it at that. Yeah.
Yes. Well, it wouldn't surprise me if they got that. I'm just speculating. That's all I'm doing.
Yeah.
Because there's a reason for needing that. So if you need it, you'll figure out how to do it. So
yeah. So 250 by 250 square allows you to make some very, very precise mapping, which is the reason for the. Yeah. So the Cartosat 3's got it's a 5-year mission, and its mission is to map the entire Earth, in that sort of resolution, which is incredible,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the size of an iPad, basically.
Oh, yeah, it is. Yeah, pretty much.
1 pixel.
Yeah, 10 inches.
You'd have a pixel, so you wouldn't be able to tell it was an iPad, but yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but still, it's pretty good,
That's amazing. Yeah, and it's something that it's a thing that'll have to keep happening because the Earth changes all the time with just erosion, let alone human activity.
Yeah, if you because the mapping isn't just, so what's not appreciated is the variety of cameras and variety of sensors. So it's not just mapping, the ground surface, it's topography and all of that, but there's so much more to it because you got different sensors that can pick up different colors and stuff. You can map plankton, you can map weather, you can map,
mineral deposits, maybe.
Yeah. Any number of different parameters can be mapped. And then we've got, instruments, spectrometers and stuff like that. We can actually make out what minerals are on the surface. There's so much that's possible, and while all of this science is happening, there are people with their thumb in their bums saying the Earth's flat. It's just incredible.
Well, whenever I say, look, I make videos that are science-based, but mostly I make fun of people who believe the Earth is flat, the reaction I always get is, there are people who still think the Earth is flat. It's almost every single time.
Yeah. Actually, they have kind of made a name for them, because I occasionally I come across people, and I've said that, there's people who think the Earth is flat, and they think that's rather funny. But most people have kind of heard of it somewhere, that there are people like that, and so they have not been unnoticed, as it were. Okay, which is pretty strange.
Well, I think a lot of people go onto forums as entertainment, and soon you'll come up with all the political arguments, of course, and they just bore me. I used to be into those, but now I just realise they're all as bad as each other. There's no point defending any of them. So, but the other thing that people would argue about is, well, apart from all the other conspiracy theories, is flat Earth is one of those. There's all sorts of conspiracy theories out there, and it's just simply because people have more information now, so they speculate more, and because they're not trained to analyze things properly, they come to all sorts of conclusions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and don't forget, there's so it's not only those people who feel like they want to belong to a club, with who knows special things that other people don't know. Then they're led by these people who don't actually believe it themselves, like the people like QEs and like
Oakley,
and then keep developing new. It's kind of like the Oakleys and the Sleeping Warriors go off to the QEs to get information. That's why I call him the Queen Daddy Boss of flat Earth knowledge, because that's kind of like that's like the Vatican of flat Earth,
I almost laughed out loud then. You said flat Earth knowledge.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, so they go off to the Vatican of flat Earth, and this is where they pick up the tips on how to deal with the intransigence, And
but how many times do they have to fail at that to realise that their tips aren't worth a damn?
Yeah. Well, for instance, this business about, hang on a second, it's not science because you didn't follow this particular pattern of
Sleeping Warrior is particularly bad at that. He thinks he knows the scientific method, yet every time he talks about it, he demonstrates he knows nothing about it.
So somebody mentioned that to me, that he did this egg experiment. So I went to have a look at it, and he was on it because he claims that it's following the scientific method, egg experiment. And then he said that he had a conductivity meter, which he called a ppm meter or something like that.
Yeah, parts per minute.
Parts per minute.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. And we would probably talk about milligrams per liter over here. But anyway, he's measuring parts per million of what he didn't know. So how scientific is that? He actually is measuring stuff he doesn't even know what the hell it is that he's measuring.
It could have been unicorn farts.
Yeah, but not only that, he's using it as one of his parameters in his actual experiment. The stuff that he doesn't know what he's measuring.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
he did have a control. He had the glass of water that had no salt in it, but
yes,
that's about as close to the scientific method as he got.
Yeah, I know. But then he's putting salt in the water. He doesn't know why the meter is registering anything. What is it? And what's going on, and therefore why shouldn't it have an effect on the egg? He's got no idea. The only control he has is the glass, is the glass with no salt in it. Has got no other control, so it doesn't actually understand anything about what's happening in the other part of this experiment, and yet he'll call that the scientific method. But
given it was supposed to be about density, a parts per million meter is not what you use to measure density.
Yeah, well, no, it isn't. But actually, he did. He did demonstrate Archimedes' principle. The egg did rise simply because of its buoyant force, and that. Although I'm not really sure, I didn't watch this long enough to try and work out what his point was. But it seems to me, what's he saying, that he's manages to get a force to move the egg up? I really didn't understand
Well, he completely ignored that in the control that the egg sank.
Yeah.
He got an acceleration down.
Yes.
Which means there was a force present, because that was his argument that the egg rose. I created a force that rose it. But he's ignoring that it's the other one also had a force on it because it went down. So there's two forces at work at the very least.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. But I brought that up, the scientific method up, because there are probably about as many ways to do the science, to practice science, as there are experiments that you need to do. Because I mean, you'll obviously design them around what experiments you want to do. So, like, whereas there's a broad framework that says that you need to take care of controls and stuff like that.
And repeatability as well. That was the other thing that was missing from the egg experiment. He didn't have the rigor that a scientist would approach it with. You'd test, like 50 eggs, and you'd measure precisely the density of the water you're using, and you'd test them all and take the average result, because that would give you what's going to happen in reality much more than just one egg. Yeah.
I don't think that's appreciated from people who haven't done science like that. Well, I mean, I shouldn't say that. People who haven't done science, who have learned something about it and know the practice of it, and have done lab work, at schools and stuff like that, would know that it's a long process of inquiry, and it's not something that you do it once and say, "Yay, that's it! I know the answer to to everything." I've got the secrets to the world because I did one experiment. You might do this hundreds of times, and it's not uncommon for scientists to work for years, literally, at doing science just to try and answer a simple question.
Well, there's plenty of questions we haven't answered, and there always will be, because that's the way science works. Or it's exploring the world and seeing how the world works. And that's why science came around, to give us a consistent method so that we can do it and remove all the subjectiveness out of it. So, our personal opinions about things. But the Flerfs don't do that. It's their personal opinions is where they start. And that's why they're never scientific, really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I think that their reference to the scientific method is, I think it comes from the Vatican of Flat Earth, and its design is to try and discredit.
Yes.
I think that's its only purpose. It's to try and discredit, like, for instance, discrediting astronomy, for instance. If we discredit astronomy, then stars will just disappear. They'll just become not stars.
Well, space is fake.
Yeah. All we have to do is say that astronomy is not science for some, because you can't fiddle with an independent variable, whereas just in any description of science, we'll talk about observation and experiments, and you could have observational science, based on observations, and even deductions, and reasoning, all of those things can come into science.
But the common factor with all the scientific method is, in the end, does it work? Is it repeatable? In the sense that if I've come up with I've done something that shows something, can someone else do the same thing? And if that can be done many times by people in different conditions, and you get the same result, because that's what removing all the variables is all about, then you've got a fair idea that works. The thing with the flat Earth is nothing ever works. We've gone through, in this very conversation, we've listed many examples where flat Earth doesn't work, but the globe Earth does. So if you want a valid view of the world, you've got to go with what works, not with what doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, precisely.
And I think the main reason people, you're absolutely right. I think they want to feel special, and that's why they stick with flat Earth. But the reason they get into it in the first place is people, the Oakleys and the QEs and things like that, they're very persuasive. If you get any group of people, say 10 people, there'll be one or two people in there who are very persuasive, and they'll convince the other people to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
And I find that I'm that myself to some extent.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm in a group of people and they don't really know what to do, I want to give direction to people. I'm a team leader. Sorry, say again?
I said you herd them like a sheepdog, you know?
Yeah. I mean, when they're not going in any particular direction, then they're quite susceptible to going to any direction.
Yeah. That's right.
And that's, leaders do that. But if you're leading them over a cliff, they've got to use their own discernment to realize, oh, we're going over a cliff. We don't want to follow this leader anymore.
Yeah.
But Flerfs aren't doing that. We can verify it, on the Globe side, we can verify everything we're doing. Everything we're saying works. Nothing on their side works, and yet those people still follow them.
I don't think it matters to them. So they're not actually interested in in knowing facts. For instance, I had a little experiment that I thought about. If you've just got a photograph and you're looking at some wind turbines that are over the horizon, so you can call it over the horizon however you want to describe why you can't see the bottom of it. But generally speaking, you can see some of them, you can see a little bit, some of them you can see more and more, and so on. So they're varying lengths above the horizon. Okay. Well, if you can measure those lengths, let's say in pixels, if you want, it doesn't really matter the units that you use, measure those lengths, and then go to an actual plan, like Google Map or whatever it is, or the actual engineering plan, and have a look at that and have a look at the distance, the actual distance from where this photograph is taken out to each one. Now, if you can plot these distances, so distance out to the turbine versus, let's say distance on one axis and height on the other. So the x-axis will make that the distance and the height will make that the y-axis. Then we'll have a look and see if we can get a linear function. And if you're getting a linear function, then you could safely say that this surface is flat. And if you don't, what are you going to do? It's not flat, is it?
Yeah, you got to look for another hypothesis. That's the way science works.
Yeah, you got to, you just got to say, well, that does it. What else are you going to say? The damn place isn't flat. Now you can come up for other reasons. You might say, well, it's not flat because of the tide, or I don't know. You could make something up, but it's bloody not flat. That's for sure. So Phil, you said you had about an hour, and we've been going for more than an hour. Do you need to go now? Or? I have to get going now. So I don't know if you meant to have a short one, but there you go.
No, that's all right. I thank you very much for being on the show. We didn't get to talk about the effect of the pandemic, which is something I wanted to have a chat to you about. Can we do that another time?
Oh yeah, no problems at all. I mean, that's a whole interesting topic on its own. I think you have to be careful with that with YouTube, though. I'm
not monetized anyway, so.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, no, that's right. Anyway, I think it's a conversation that everyone should have. And,
yes, Well, what I want to talk about is how our society is going to change. It's not so much about whether it exists or not.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of that, and I think I might have said this to you, and that is probably not a good time to be investing in commercial real estate.
And that's the kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much, and thank you the people out there in the Peanut Gallery for being with us. Yeah.
Rachie said hi, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Oh, great. So I think we should have a show just for Rachie.
Well, I've actually got a video coming up for Rachie too. So. If Rachie would like to come on a future live stream, we can do that. You, me, and Rachie, that'd be good.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. That would be great. I'd be in on that for sure.
Yeah. And we can answer her questions directly. Maybe after I've done my video, which was she gave me 6 questions and I'm answering them. So, but you need to go. So thank you very much.
Okay. No worries. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. you can click remove.
Okay. I'll have
Hover
to-
over your picture down the bottom and click remove.
Okay, right.
Well, I can do it for you if you want.
Yes, please, you do.
Okay, there we go. All right, Phil's gone. Thank you very much, Phil, once again. It was a pleasure having you on. You're such a gentleman. It's great. I think I'll wrap it up there as well. I haven't had a look in the chat for a while, so I better have a look. There's a lot of people there who came in later on. We're up to 25. Tina Jones, hi. The Snark, g'day, mate. How are you? Rob Fowler, hello. Oh, it looks like you've all been having a chat with Rachie, so that's good. Hope she's learning a few things. Hello, Dog Walker. Theo Fungi, hello. Oh, he's just come in. I'm sure there's other people. Pixel 2 Domination. Colin, hello, Colin. I saw you come in earlier, but I was too busy talking to Phil. He's such an interesting guy. Christian Ganelius, hello. It's me, Mario Rui. Hello, Mario. And if I missed anyone, my apologies. It was such an interesting conversation. I didn't really have the opportunity to engage in the chat too much, but maybe I should have two guests and they can talk to each other and I can get in the chat a little bit. So I think I'm going to end it there. Watch out for my video later on. Thanks again to Professor Phil Builder for being on. And look out for my next video, which should be out in a couple of days. And I'll have another live stream next week. See you guys.
So there's nothing left to do but cue the corgi.
You're despicable.
Hugh Jarsz says, I love Hugh Jarsz and I cannot lie.